Hello, my name is Mark Geddick. I'm a student support coach at SIT at the Regina campus. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to use the fraction button on your calculator. So many calculators now have a fraction button and a fraction to decimal button, so two different buttons that aid us in working with fractions. Traditionally, we would spend a lot of time reviewing the rules for adding fractions, subtracting fractions, multiplying and dividing fractions, and doing questions that involve order of operations with fractions. But now that we have a fraction button on most calculators, it's much simpler to just use the fraction button to help us complete our work. So if you're using a TI calculator, the button is, I highlighted it down here in yellow. Depending on your model, it may be in a slightly different spot. It tends to look like this, ABCD, ABC. If you're using this button with just fractions themselves, they can be used to simplify. For example, if I had a proper fraction, let's say I had 12/16 and I was asked to simplify that, how I would do that on my calculator is I would type the number 12, I would type the ABC button, I would type the number 16, and I would press equals. And on my calculator, and I have a TI here, so I'm just going to do it on this machine, my calculator shows this on the display, which means 3/4. If you're working with an improper fraction, let's say 31/8, and if I wanted to type that into my calculator, I would do the same thing, 31 ABC 8 equals 31 ABC 8, and that says 3-7 this 8, which means 3 and 7/8. If you put a mixed number in, it will automatically change it to an if you put an improper fraction in, it'll change it to a mixed number in lowest terms. If you want it to go back to its improper fraction, you can hit second function and the fraction button, and it'll return it back to the 31/8. If you wanted to enter a mixed number, like 3 1/2, then on this calculator you would just do 3 ABC, 1 ABC, 2 equals. Now 3 1/2 doesn't actually simplify, so it's just going to tell you 3-1 2, which is 3 1/2. So it's nice that if you have a mixed number, you just add another fraction button in your operation. If we wanted to do operations, we do it the same way. We just insert that fraction button between each of the fractional parts. So let's say we had 3 1/2 plus 5 1/8, and we were doing this in carpentry math, so maybe these are in inches and we wanted to add them. I would do 3 fraction button, 1 fraction button, 2 plus 5 fraction button, 1 fraction button, 8 equals. And when I do that on my calculator, so 3 fraction button 1 fraction button 2 plus 5 fraction button 1 fraction button 8, and I get, on my calculator it shows 8_5 bracket 8, which is 8 5/8. Same thing, the procedure doesn't change. If I multiplied 7/8 by 2 1/4, I would just go 7 fraction button 8 multiplied by 2 fraction button 1 fraction button 4 equals. So 7 fraction button 8 times 2 fraction button 1 fraction button 4 equals, and my calculator says 1-31 bracket 32, which is 1 31 30 seconds. So that's how you do it if you're working on a TI. If you're working on different calculators, it tends to be slightly different. So there, on a Casio, there is a button that looks like this. It might still have that old fraction button, but a lot of them have moved to this direction instead. So this is the button we're going to use for proper fractions. So if I did 16/18, I would type 16. I would put that button there, in, and then 18 and equals. And the nice thing about the Casios is if they have a fraction button, they usually have better on-screen display. So when you press equals, it'll actually write your answer most times as a fraction. Same thing is true for improper fractions. If I do 34 divided by 8, or 34/8, I would do 34, fraction button, 8, and that tells me it's 4 1/4. Okay, mixed fractions are tricky, because with a mixed fraction button, you actually have to use the second function, or the shift key, to get the operation that's above the fraction button, which looks like this. So this is the mixed fraction button. So I would need to use this shift key along with my fraction button. So if I wanted to reduce, let's say, 3 10/15, and I was doing this on my calculator, I would do 3, and then I would do the shift button, and then I would do the fraction button. And then I would do 10, and then I would do the down arrow, which looks like this on mine, is this guy right here. And then I would do the 15 equals. So mixed numbers are actually a little more work on the Casios, but they're not bad. I thought you could just use the fraction button and then go use the back arrow key to put the whole number in front, but that does not work. When I do this one on my calculator in this order, I get 3 2/3, which is what I should get. Doing operations with the Casio are very much like doing the operation with a TI. If you're dealing with a proper fraction, or an improper fraction, use this button. If you're working with a mixed number, you're going to need to start by doing shift first before you use that button. So for example, if I did 9 1/3 divided by 7/8, and I wanted to type that into my calculator, I would type that in as 9 shift fraction button, 7 down arrow 8, 1 down arrow 3 divided by 7 fraction button, 8 equals, and trying that on my calculator. So 9 shift fraction button, 1 down arrow 3. You might have to press over, like right, to move out of the fraction. Divided by 7 fraction button 8 equals, this gives me 10 2/3. So minor difference between the two, both of you are going to do your operations equally well. Some people prefer to use their phone calculator compared to a standard calculator. And so if you want to access fraction functionality on your phone calculator, there is no way to do that. Just pick up one of your classroom calculators and use it instead. Find one with a fraction button and get used to using it. If you decide that you're going to use your phone, your life and your work is going to be harder throughout the course, and people are going to do things automatically that you may struggle with because you have to do them manually. So I just wouldn't waste my time trying to use my phone calculator, and most classes are not going to allow you to have your phone during an exam anyway. So you might as well get a calculator at the beginning and learn how to use it effectively. Now, most calculators that have a fraction button also have a fraction to decimal button. On the Casio, it looks like this. And on the TI, it looks like this. These are great buttons because what they will do is that if you have a fraction showing on your screen and you press that button, it'll change it to a decimal. And if you have a decimal on your screen and press that button, if it is possible to change it into a fraction, it will change it into a fraction. So like, for example, if I had 0.25 and I didn't know that that was a quarter, on my TI, that FD button is in the bottom left-hand corner here, and it's above the button, so I would have to use second function. So it looks like FD over arrow on the particular one that I'm working with. So if I do 0.25 second function arrow, the calculator tells me 1/4, which is equal to 1/4. On my Casio, mine is actually currently set up to always change decimals into fractions, but if it wasn't, and I had 0.075, I would just press the SD button. On my calculator, it's above the delete button on the bottom right hand side, or bottom of the options on the right hand side. So I guess here, if this is my Casio calculator, and I have my number pad here and I have my operations here, the F to D is like right there, and my screen is here. So I just press my S to D button, and it says 1/4. And you can just click it back and forth between the two. Okay, so those are common features that we use with fraction buttons. If you have any questions or need clarification, feel free to send me email to the email address provided at the front of this video. Thank you. Have a good day in math.